Hey friends, how are you doing? I'm back with my story of Jonathan Seagull. I have presented in my channel part 1, an entry into part 2, and now we have entered into part 2. Part 1 went like Jonathan Seagull, a beautiful seagull who just observed his flock, not able to fly, just sitting near the seashore, looking at the sea waves, waiting for the stale breads from the ships that are coming through, waiting for the stale meat that the ships were throwing on the water, and all the girls were having those food. This Jonathan Seagull was the only girl who looked at the sky and felt that, why can't I fly? If I learn to fly, maybe there are higher horizons where I can reach, and maybe there is something more into me which I can really find if I try. This girl did not believe that despite having wings, one has to stand near the shore and look at the sky. The first part went, and here Jonathan Seagull learnt how to fly. It went across different places and learned the art of flying. But the moment you start doing something wonderful, which is not done by anyone by the society where you stay, you are always declared as an outcast. And this is what happened in case of Jonathan. He was declared as an outcast by his society, and he was left alone completely and was told to go and stay in far away cliff. And Jonathan flew away into the far cliff. There Jonathan felt, what does it means to be alone? What does it means to be in solitude? And there Jonathan still did not live the passion of learning. He still continued polishing its sharp wings through the winds. It learned the different ways of flying. It learned the different ways of getting into the fog and then coming out. It learned the ways how to do fishing in the deep water. And finally, Jonathan was a very good flyer. In fact, Jonathan flew as beautifully as the falcons in the air. So here, my friends, we are entering the part 2 completely, where two people have come as visitors to meet Jonathan. Shall we find out who are they? Here the book goes. They came in the evening then and found Jonathan gliding peaceful and alone through his beloved sky. The two girls that appeared at his wings were pure as starlight, and the glow from them was gentle and friendly in the high night air. But most lovely of all was the skill with which they flew, their wingtips moving a precise and constant inch from his own. Without a word, Jonathan put them to his test, a test that no girl had ever passed. He twisted his wings, slowed to a single mile per hour above stall. The two radiant birds slowed with him, smoothly locked in position. They knew about slow flying. He folded his wings, rolled and dropped in a dive to 190 miles per hour. They dropped with him, streaking down in flawless formation. At last, he turned that speed straight up into a long vertical slow roll. They rolled with him, smiling. He recovered to level flight and was quiet for a time before he spoke. Very well, he said. Who are you? We are from your flock, Jonathan. We are your brothers. The words were strong and calm. We have come to take you higher, to take you home. Home I have none. Flock I have none. I am outcast. And we fly now at the peak of great mountain wind. Beyond a few hundred feet, I can lift this old body no higher. But you can, Jonathan, for you have learnt. One school is finished, and the time has come for another to begin. As it had shined across him all his life, so understanding lighted that moment for Jonathan Seagull. They were right. He could fly higher, and it was time to go home. He gave one long last look across the sky, across that magnificent silver land where he had learned so much. I am ready, he said at last. And Jonathan Livingston Seagull rose with the two star-bright gulls to disappear into the perfect dark sky. So here, my friends, two girls came to take Jonathan to higher visions, to higher horizons, where Jonathan can learn more. The moral till here is, if you have the gist to practice on what you want to do, there will be divine help for you. There will be divine ways created for you, because when you have passion inside yourself, the passion itself will create the path for you. Shall we read further? So, this is heaven, he thought, and he had to smile at himself. It was hardly respectful to analyze heaven in the very moment that one flies up to enter it. As he came from earth now, above the clouds, and in close formation with the two brilliant girls, he saw that his own body was growing as bright as theirs. True, the same young Jonathan Seagull was there that had always lived behind his golden eyes, but the outer form had changed. It felt like a seagull body, but already it flew far better than his old one had ever flown. Why, with half the effort, he thought, I'll get twice the speed, twice the performance of my best days on earth. His feathers glowed brilliant white now, and his wings were smooth and perfect as sheets of polished silver. He began delightedly to learn about them, to press power into these new wings. At 250 miles per hour, he felt that he was nearing his level flight maximum speed. At 273, he thought that he was flying as fast as he could fly, and he was ever so faintly disappointed. There was a limit to how much the new body could do, and though it was much faster than his old level flight record, it was still a limit that would take great effort to crack. In heaven, he thought, there should be no limits. The clouds broke apart. His escorts called, "Happy landing, Jonathan," and vanished within this air. He was flying over a sea towards a jagged shoreline. A very few seagulls were working the updrafts on the cliffs. Away off to the north at the horizon itself flew a few others. New sights, new thoughts, new questions. Why so few gulls? Heaven should be flocked with gulls. And why am I so tired all at once? Girls in heaven are never supposed to be tired or to sleep. Where had he heard that? The memory of his life on earth was falling away. Earth had been a place where he had learnt much, of course, but the details were blurred. Something about fighting for food and being outcast? Oh, Jonathan does not remember them anymore. The dozen girls by the shoreline came to meet him, none saying a word. He felt only that he was welcome and that he was home. It had been a big day for him, a day whose sunrise he no longer remembered. He turned to land on the beach, beating his wings to stop an inch in the air. then drooping lightly to the sand. The other gulls landed too, but not one of them so much flapped a feather. They swung into the wind, bright wings outstretched. Then somehow they changed the curve of their feathers until they had stopped in the same instant their feet touched the ground. It was beautiful control, but now Jonathan was just too tired to try it. Standing there on the beach, still without a word spoken, he was asleep. In the days that followed, Jonathan saw that there was as much to learn about flight in this place as there had been in life behind him, but with a difference. Here girls who thought as he thought. This is a wonderful remark, my friend. Please note it down. That here in heaven there were very few flocks. That was a very big question in the eye of Jonathan, who used to think that heaven would be flocked by so many girls. But why only few flocks were there? The answer is very simple, because very few people in the world think differently from their flocks. So only those few people reach the heaven. Then, number 2, what Jonathan felt that there is so much to learn in heaven as much as he had learned on earth. Isn't this surprising that the more you start learning, the more there is to learn? For a long time, Jonathan started his new journey again. He remembered it one morning. He was out with his instructor while they rested on the beach after a session of folded wing snap rolls. "Where is everybody, Sullivan?" he asked silently, quite at home now with the easy telepathy that these girls used instead of screes and grags. "Why aren't there more of us here? Why? Why, where I came from, there were so many, thousands and thousands of girls I know." Sullivan shook his head. "The only answer I can see, Jonathan, is that you are pretty well a 1 in a million bird. Most of us came along ever so slowly. We went from one world into another that was almost exactly like it, forgetting right away where we had come from, not caring where we were headed, living for the moment. Do you have any idea how many lives we must have gone through before we even got the first idea that there is more to life than eating or fighting or power in the flock? 1,000 lives, John, 10,000, and then another 100 lives until we began to learn that there is such a thing as perfection, and another 100 again to get the idea that our purpose for living is to find that perfection and show it forth. The same rule holds for us now, of course. We choose our next world through what we learn in this one. Learning nothing and the next world is the same as this one. All the same limitations and lead weights to overcome. He stretched his wings and turned to face the wind. Think for a moment here, my friends. What does Sullivan, who is the new instructor of Jonathan in heaven, tries to tell him? He tells him, "Jonathan, you are 1 in a million who was able to reach this heaven directly from earth. But for us, we had to go from journey to journey, from lives to lives, a 1,000 lives, a 10,000 lives, to reach where you have reached without changing lives." You know why this has happened with us, Jonathan? This has happened with us because we were all lost in our lives after few important things which looked very important from a flock's perspective. The important things are what? The important things were search for food, being friends with the flock, staying with the flock, and having the same old set of thoughts: how to eat, how to sleep, how to die. Again wake up, eat, sleep, live, die, and the life continued. We never ever thought that there is something bigger to life beyond eating food. There is something bigger to life beyond your daily thinkings. There is something bigger to life beyond what you have now, beyond the limitations that you see now. And to reach that bigger is the journey of perfection. If you will not change, if you will stay in the same life doing the same things, you will be faced by the same limitations that have been imposed on you, and life on life you will be going through these limitations, never to come out into a new life filled up with new journeys to explore and new ways to lead life. Isn't it interesting, my friends, Jonathan Seagull's journey till now? Let's read further. He stretched his wings and turned to face the wind. But you, John, he said, learned so much at one time that you didn't have to go through 1,000 lives to reach this one. In a moment, they were airborne again. Practicing the formation point rolls were difficult, for through the inverted half, Jonathan had to think upside down, reversing the curve of his wings and reversing it exactly in harmony with his instructors. Let's try it again, Sullivan said over and over. Let's try it again. Then finally, good, and they began practicing outside loops. One evening, the girls that were not night flying stood together on the sand, thinking Jonathan took all his courage in hand and walked to the elder girl who was, it was said, was soon to be moving beyond this world. Chang, he said a little nervously. The old seagull looked at him kindly. Yes, my son. Instead of being enfeebled by age, the elder had been empowered by it. He could outfly any girl in the flock, and he had learned skills that others were only gradually coming to know. Chang, this world isn't heaven at all, is it? The elder smiled in the moonlight. You are learning again, Jonathan Seagull, he said. Well, what happens from here? Where are we going? Is there no such place as heaven? No, Jonathan, there is no such place. Heaven is not a place. It is not a time. Heaven is being perfect. He was silent for a moment. You're a very fast flyer, aren't you? I enjoy speed, Jonathan said, taken aback, but proud that the elder had noticed. You will begin to touch heaven, Jonathan, in the moment that you touch perfect speed. And that isn't flying 1,000 miles an hour or 1,000,000 or flying at the speed of light, because any number is a limit and perfection doesn't have limits. Perfect speed, my son, is being there. Without warning, Chang vanished and appeared at the water's edge 50 feet away, all in the flicker of an instant. And then he vanished again and stood in the same millisecond at Jonathan's shoulder. It's kind of fun, he said. Isn't it a wonderful story, my friend, till now? Jonathan thought that he has come to heaven, where he is finding some flocks and he is going to work out with them. But here he meets the oldest of flock, named as Chang, who is flying even more wonderfully than any of the flock who were available in Jonathan Seagull's flock at heaven. And Jonathan takes the courage to ask Chang if the place where Jonathan is heaven. But to his surprise, Chang replied, there is no such place as heaven, but there is a place when you reach a perfect speed. That perfect moment would be heaven. And perfect speed is not about reaching a certain kilometers, a certain millimeters per hour, but perfect speed is to just be there in the moment. What a beautiful lesson the elderly Chang is teaching Jonathan here. Do not run after numbers, my friends. Do not run after things to fulfill the numbers and reach a certain limit in your life, because any number you set for yourself will take you away from perfection. The moment you think that you are behind number, you are away from the best you can achieve. And the moment you think that you are always in the journey of perfection, trying to learn something new, you will always be closer to heaven. You will always be one step ahead from the things that you have learned in the past. So take this lesson, my friends, and go ahead and go read this book. I will be publishing more and more about this book. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.